What's up, YouTube friends? So today I'm in my epoxy room and I'm going to show you how to make tattooed tumblers, the Crackle tattoo tumblers. It's really simple, and the things you're going to need to make it is a tumbler. Now this is a 30-ounce stainless steel tumbler. I sanded it with about a medium grit sandpaper and then just spray painted it black. You're also going to need some Elmer's glue. You could also use Mod Podge, but I find I get a better crackle with the Elmer's glue. And you're going to need some white paint. You could really use any color that you want. You just want something contrasting with your base color. I also have a foam brush to apply my glue, a chip brush to apply my paint, and I'll also be using my heat gun, but that's really not necessary. You could just use a hairdryer or just let it dry naturally. And you're also going to need a tattoo of some sort if you choose to put one on there. I get these on Amazon, and these are full arm sleeve tattoos. And to finish it all off, you're going to need some epoxy, and I'll be using the Pro Marine today. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my glue and put some in my cup. That's definitely way too much, but it'll be okay. And with my foam brush, I'm going to cover my entire cup. And at this point, you can just slop it on. And don't forget the bottom. Right, so it should look something like that. Now, I've tried this technique before in the past and I actually didn't like it, but there was one step that I wasn't doing correctly. So at this point, we're going to let about 50% of this glue dry. You can see that's pretty shiny right now, but when it starts to dry, it gets a matte look to it. So just to speed things along, I'm going to use my heat gun. So I don't know how well you can see it, maybe at the bottom a little better, but there's some shiny bits and some dry parts. So now I'm just going to grab my white paint, and you want to use a pretty liberal amount. I'm going to take my chip brush, and I'm just going to go from top to bottom in one stroke until the whole tumbler is covered. So just like that, if you've got some black spots that show through, that's just fine. You don't want to go back over this again, otherwise it gets really dry and chunky looking. Kind of like those ladies with the bad foundation that's all cakey and cracked around their neck. Not a good look. So now you're just going to want to let this dry completely. And to speed it along, I'm just going to use... Oop! Don't forget to do the bottom. Now just to get this to dry a little faster, I'm going to use my heat gun. You can see right there it's already starting to crackle. Now I'm just going to take my finger and go along the lip here. Paint does tend to get clumped up right there, and you don't want that. This is about halfway dry, so now I'm just going to set this off to the side and let it dry completely. When it is dry, you want to give it a clear coat of something. You could just use Mod Podge. You could do a thin layer of epoxy, or what I like to use is just the triple thick. So you can see how good that one crackles. And it really does happen right before your eyes. Now I do have another one I'm going to grab that I use Mod Podge, and you can see the difference in the crackle. I really prefer the Elmer's glue. And here's the one that I did with Mod Podge. And you can see with the Elmer's glue you get deeper cracks. I mean, this still looks fine, but I just prefer the larger cracks of the Elmer's glue. So now I just am going to put my tattoo on here. Now this is just a PVC little thing I made with pool noodles and PVC pipe. It helps to get your tattoos, or if you're putting any stickers or anything on your mugs, it just helps to get them even. So half of this tattoo will fit on the tumbler nicely, so I'm just going to cut it right in half. I have some water and some washcloth. And like I said earlier, I did seal this with triple thick before I'm going to put the tattoo on here. So I'm just going to trim up a little bit of this that I don't need. So I'm just going to line up the top of the tattoo with the top of my tumbler, because I want that clock design to show. And then I'm just going to get my washcloth. I think we've all put it on tattoos before. And then just soak the paper. Once I got it down, I just like to stick my hand in here. And you just want to totally saturate your paper. And any of the excess can just go right around to the bottom. So then I just like to peel up a little corner to see if it's ready. This one is. If you get any wrinkles or any bubbles or any tears, it's fine. With this crackle finish, it just looks like it's part of the design. Now I'm just going to get my finger wet and then just kind of tap it, press everything down. And then here at the bottom, just make sure everything's nice and flat. It's not going to look the best at the bottom, but like I said, it just looks like part of the design. If you have any wrinkles or bubbles, just smooth them out. And for bubbles, I just kind of tap on it. I don't know how well you can see it, but right there, the tattoo's kind of ripping. So I'm just going to take that part off, and no big deal. Right, so now I'm just going to do the other side. I just like to wet this. I don't know if it helps or not. You can let this dry completely, but I'm impatient. So I'm going to stick it down. Grab my other half of my tattoo and do the same thing. So I'm just going to trim up a little bit here. So I kind of start just going down the middle first. And then just go and soak the rest. And normally it's not this messy, but I'm just trying to make sure you guys can see it. And right here I actually have some tattoo up by the lip, so I'm going to make sure that that gets down in there. So just like before, wet my fingers. There's a big bubble right here. No problem. But you want to make sure that you get your fingers wet. Alright, so that's what it looks like. To me, I would say that this is probably the front of the cup. So I'm just going to set this off to the side and let it dry completely. So now's the fun part. We get to epoxy this. I mixed my epoxy 50-50 per the manufacturer's instructions. And for this first coat for 30-ounce tumblers, I use about 30 milliliters of epoxy. I have way more in here because I have a couple more to do. And all I do is dip my fingers and slap it on here. So I like to kind of get a pool going, and then with my finger just move it along my tumbler. This part to me is pretty hypnotic, just watching it spin. I kind of get lost in my work. And as you can see, I'm pretty sloppy with this. And don't forget your bottom. And then once it's covered, I use about 30. Then I just like to go down one way with my finger, make sure everything's smooth and covered. I like to really focus right here where it kind of transitions down to size, and then also on the rim. But you just want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth. And then I go back the other way. It's always good to have a few baby wipes laying around to wipe off any of the epoxy. So now I'm just going to grab my heat gun and I'm going to lightly go over my epoxy just to pop any of those little bubbles. That also heats up your epoxy a little bit to get it flowing evenly. You don't want to go too long with your heat gun because you can burn the epoxy and it smells really bad. So here's another epoxy I have on in my other turner. It already has the first coat on, so this one just needs the final coat. Now for the final coat, it's a very thin coat. It's just to cover up if there's any little bubbles or anything like that, little dimples. So I'm going to go lighter on the epoxy, so I'll use at most probably 20 milliliters. So I'm going to do the same thing, but just do less epoxy. So once I have this covered with my final thin coat, now I'm going to come back with my silicone spatula just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. So like before, I will go one way. Scrape off any of that extra epoxy, and then just go the other way, just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. And I just like to make sure right around the rim it has a good coat. And any extra big globs can go right back in my epoxy container. So just like before, I'm going to grab my heat gun. Make sure my cord doesn't go in the other one. And then just pop the bubbles. So after my final coat, I just let them dry overnight. And I have a few here that are done. Now this one kind of has a purple flower. And then some skulls on it. Now each of these tumblers also come with one straw. These just happen to come with straight straws and a cleaning brush plus the lid. Now here's another one. Now these are up in my Etsy shop right now. This one kind of has like a Day of the Dead theme. I really like the colors of the flowers on this one. Here's a pretty bright colored one. It has roses and a clock on it, a pocket watch. This one I thought turned out really cute. It just has these flowers on it. To me, it kind of reminds me of Hawaii for some reason. I've never been. And this one would probably have to be my favorite. It's Jack Skellington. I have a feeling this one will probably sell pretty fast. And Oogie Boogie. Now I also have two more I'm putting up on my Etsy shop, but they're on the turner still right now with their final coat. Now I've been asked multiple times if I would do custom orders. And there are a few people that I have done them for, but it was very simple things. But as far as putting names and stuff like that on it, I do not have a Cricut. And for me to sit there, A, it's time consuming to cut out all that vinyl. And B, it'll just jack up the price of the tumblers. But lucky for you, I have the perfect person that'll love to do any custom orders you have. Her name is Erica at the Darn Yankee. And here's a few of her beautiful creations. Now this is just a few of the pictures I ripped off her Facebook. So if you'd like one of her beautiful masterpieces customized to you, head on over to Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at the Darn Yankee, and I'll go ahead and I'll leave all her links down below. So if you like this video and want to see more of my videos, give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I'll also have my link to my Etsy shop down below if you'd like to purchase any of the mugs I just showed you. All my social media links will be down below also. And as always, thanks for watching, happy crafting, and I'll see you next time.